Imagine walking into the world's most exclusive five-star hotel after a grueling storm, soaked to the bone, only to be treated like a street trespasser. That is exactly what happened to Marcus Vance, a self-made titan who spent years working in silence. Little did the arrogant staff know, the grand building they stood in belonged entirely to him. The torrential rain battered the glass doors of the Grand Paragon Hotel as Marcus stepped into the pristine marble lobby. Raindrops fell from his dark coat onto the polished floor. He approached the front desk with a polite smile, holding his leather travel bag tightly, exhausted from a long flight and eager to rest. Behind the golden desk stood Julian, a senior night manager whose sharp suit concealed an extremely petty nature. Beside him was Clara, an ambitious receptionist who took pride in judging guests by their outer attire. The moment their eyes landed on Marcus, their expressions twisted into visible disgust and condescension. "Good evening," Marcus said calmly, his voice smooth despite his weariness. "I have a reservation under the name Vance for the presidential penthouse suite." Julian did not even bother typing on his keyboard. He simply crossed his arms, stared down his nose, and let out a cold, mocking chuckle that echoed across the quiet lobby. "Sir, you must have taken a wrong turn," Julian sneered dismissively. "The local homeless shelter is for blocks south. The Grand Paragon is an elite establishment reserved for high-net-worth individuals, not walk-ins seeking shelter from the rain." The deep disrespect in his tone was undeniable and completely unprovoked. Marcus blinked, surprised by the blatant hostility. "I assure you, my reservation was confirmed hours ago by corporate offices," he replied patiently. Clara rolled her eyes dramatically, finally clicking her mouse with exaggerated irritation. She barely looked at the screen before snorting and tapping her long acrylic fingernails on the counter. "There is no reservation here for any Vance," Clara lied effortlessly, deliberately closing the high-priority reservation portal on her monitor. "And even if there were, our dress code strictly prohibits individuals who look untidy. I suggest you turn around before we are forced to escort you back into the storm." Marcus took a deep breath, remaining remarkably composed despite the glaring prejudice staring at him. He reached into his coat pocket, pulling out a sleek black custom titanium card engraved with an encrypted emblem. "Please run this card or check the Global Executive Portal," Marcus suggested quietly. "It will clarify everything immediately." Julian snatched the black card with a sneer, barely glancing at the custom metallic finish before sliding it carelessly across the counter. "Nice fake," Julian snorted, tossing the card back onto the marble where it slid toward Marcus. "You really think a stolen plastic card grants you access to our top suite?" At that moment, the head of hotel security, Officer Reynolds, strolled over, his hand resting aggressively on his heavy belt unit. Reynolds was a man who enjoyed flexing authority over defenseless people. "Is this individual causing trouble, Julian?" Reynolds asked loudly, stepping menacingly close into Marcus's personal space. "He is refusing to leave and fabricating fake bookings," Clara chimed in with a fake innocent pout. "He is making us feel very unsafe, Reynolds." Reynolds immediately grabbed Marcus by the shoulder of his damp coat, pulling him backward toward the grand revolving exit doors without asking a single clarifying question. "Take your hands off me," Marcus said softly, though his voice held a thunderous weight that made Reynolds freeze momentarily. Marcus gently removed the guard's fingers from his coat, adjusting his collar. "I am giving you all one final opportunity to conduct yourselves professionally and fulfill my room reservation." Julian burst out laughing, leaning over the counter with venom in his eyes. "Who do you think you are giving demands to?" Julian barked. "The owner of this entire hotel chain is arriving in town tomorrow morning, and if he sees someone like you loitering here, we will all be questioned. Leave now." Marcus smiled faintly, a chilling spark igniting deep within his eyes. "Is that so?" Marcus asked smoothly. "And who exactly do you believe owns this establishment?" Clara scoffed loudly, placing her hands on her hips. "A legendary European investment consortium headed by a world-class venture capitalist, not a vagrant in rain-soaked clothes." Marcus slowly pulled a sleek, customized platinum smartphone from his inner pocket. He tapped the screen calmly, unlocked a high-level corporate communications app, and set a countdown timer for exactly 45 minutes. He placed the phone face up on the marble counter right before Julian's mockingly dismissive gaze. "What is this stupid game?" Julian sneered, glaring down at the glowing red numbers counting down from 45 minutes.
"Are you threatening us with a timer?"
Marcus placed a secondary private call, holding the phone to his ear with absolute stillness as the line connected on the very first ring. "Arthur," Marcus spoke into the phone, his tone crystal clear. "I am currently in the lobby of the Paragon Grand. The night shift staff has refused my reservation, threatened me with security, and tossed my executive key card. You have 44 minutes to assemble the board here in person." On the other end of the line, Arthur Sterling, the regional vice president of Paragon Global, gasped so loudly that his chair scraped harshly against his office floor miles away. "Mr. Vance!" Arthur stammered in absolute horror. "Sir! We had no idea you arrived early. I am calling all directors right now." Marcus ended the call without another word, sliding the phone back into his pocket while the timer remained active on the counter. Julian and Clara shared a mocking look, believing Marcus was merely performing an embarrassing, fake phone call to save face after being caught in a ridiculous lie. "Who was that, your imaginary buddy?" Clara snickered, leaning over to whisper loud enough for Reynolds to hear. "You heard him, right? He claimed he called Arthur Sterling, the executive vice president. What an absolute clown." Reynolds chuckled, cracking his knuckles intimidation style near the marble pillar. However, a young junior bellhop named David, who had been quietly organizing luggage in the background, paused nervously. David had seen the quarterly corporate digital newsletter published just 2 days prior. The newsletter featured a dark-skinned man named Marcus Vance who had just acquired controlling equity in Paragon Hospitality. David felt his heart leap into his throat as he stared closely at Marcus's calm profile. "Julian," David whispered anxiously, creeping up to the front desk counter. "Julian, wait a minute. Look at his face. I think that might actually be the new global managing director from corporate headquarters." "Shut your mouth, David!" Julian snapped fiercely, waving his hand dismissively at the young trainee. "Go clean the luggage carts in the basement. Don't tell me how to run my desk. I know garbage when I see it, and this man isn't staying in our hotel." Marcus watched the interaction silently, noting David's hesitant kindness and Julian's unchecked arrogance. Marcus walked calmly over to a plush leather armchair in the waiting lounge, sitting down gracefully, crossing his legs, and resting his hands over his knee while the rain continued pouring outside. "Hey! You can't sit there!" Reynolds barked, marching aggressively toward the lounge area. "That seating is strictly reserved for paying guests waiting for valet services." Marcus lifted his eyes, looking directly into Reynolds' soul with an unshakable authority that froze the guard in his tracks once again. "You have 30 minutes left on that timer, officer," Marcus stated with eerie serenity. "I suggest you spend those 30 minutes reflecting on your career choices, because after tonight, your professional security credentials will be utterly useless across this entire country." Reynolds shuddered, feeling an unexplained chill run down his spine. Meanwhile, 3 miles away in an executive estate, Regional Vice President Arthur Sterling was frantically pulling his suit jacket over his pajamas, screaming into his mobile phone at top executives to wake them up immediately. "Get every board member to the Paragon Grand right now." Arthur screamed hysterically into his phone as he sprinted toward his luxury sedan in the driving rain. "Marcus Vance is at the front desk. If he fires us for negligence, our entire regional division is completely destroyed." Back in the lobby, 20 minutes remained on the timer. Clara was busy pouring herself a cup of gourmet espresso behind the desk, laughing with Julian about how they would recount this hilarious story to the morning shift. They were utterly blind to the catastrophe speeding down the highway toward them. "I should call the local police department right now," Clara grinned, taking a sip of coffee. "Filing a trespassing charge against him will be the highlight of my week." Julian nodded eagerly. "Do it. Let them drag him out in cuffs right before the real owner arrives tomorrow." Before Clara could finish dialing the emergency dispatch number, the heavy glass entrance doors burst open with immense force. Three black luxury executive SUVs slammed their brakes violently under the glowing entrance canopy outside, tires screeching loudly through the torrential rain. Julian and Clara stood frozen in surprise as six men in high-end tailored suits sprinted recklessly through the entrance without umbrellas, completely soaking their expensive attire. Leading the frantic group was Arthur Sterling himself, pale-faced, panting heavily, and looking around the lobby in pure panic. Julian instantly stood up straight, plastering a fake, brown-nosing smile across his face as he adjusted his necktie. "Mr. Sterling!" Julian exclaimed obsequiously. "What an unexpected honor! What brings the entire executive board here at this late hour in such terrible weather?" Arthur ignored Julian entirely, scanning the vast lobby with wide, terrified eyes until his gaze locked onto the comfortable leather armchair near the fireplace. There sat Marcus Vance, calmly glancing down at his glowing phone display as the timer reached 0. Arthur rushed across the marble floor like a madman, almost slipping on the wet surface, followed closely by 5 trembling board members. They lined up in a neat, trembling row in front of Marcus's chair, bowing their heads in deep, terrifying respect. "Mr. Vance! Chief Executive Officer!" Arthur choked out, his voice shaking visibly. "We offer our deepest and most sincere apologies for this unbelievable delay. We arrived as fast as humanly possible, sir. Please forgive us." The entire lobby fell into a suffocating, dead silence. Behind the front desk, Clara dropped her porcelain coffee cup, sending hot espresso splashing across her polished shoes and shattering ceramic pieces across the pristine floor. Julian's face turned completely white, as if all the blood had been drained instantly. "CC Chief Executive Officer." Julian stammered, his knees shaking so violently he had to hold onto the counter edge for stability. "Mr. Sterling, surely there is a mistake. This man, he walked in from the rain without even a suit. He claimed he had a reservation." Arthur turned around slowly, his face twisted in absolute fury as he glared at Julian and Clara. "You incompetent fools!" Arthur roared, his voice echoing loudly throughout the high ceilings. "This is Mr. Marcus Vance. He finalized the 90% controlling acquisition of Paragon Hospitality Empire on Monday morning. He is not just a guest, you utter idiots." Arthur screamed, his face turning bright red with intense frustration. "He owns this entire hotel chain. He owns the ground you stand on, the desks you sit behind, and pays every single cent of your salaries." Reynolds, the security head, felt his jaw drop in pure terror. He slowly looked down at his own hand, the same hand he had used to grab Marcus's coat minutes prior. A cold sweat broke out across his forehead as he realized the magnitude of his life-altering mistake. Marcus slowly stood up from his leather armchair, smoothing out his rain-dampened coat. The sheer presence he radiated filled the entire lobby, causing the board members to instinctively take 2 steps back in deferential respect. The quiet, humble man had transformed into an untouchable titan. "Arthur," Marcus spoke smoothly, pointing toward the high-definition security camera mounted directly above the reception counter. "I want you to access the security audio and video footage from 45 minutes ago immediately. Watch how your staff treats human beings who do not fit their narrow standards." Arthur pulled out a tablet instantly, accessing the live local cloud system. Within seconds, the video played clearly, showing Julian mocking Marcus, Clara deleting the high-level presidential suite booking, and Reynolds physically putting his hands on the CEO while making overt discriminatory remarks. Arthur was horrified as he watched the footage play. "This is an outrageous violation of corporate ethics and human dignity," Arthur whispered in horror, turning back toward Julian, Clara, and Reynolds with pure disdain. "You 3 have brought unfathomable disgrace upon this flagship property." Julian scrambled out from behind the counter, falling onto his knees before Marcus, pleading frantically. "Mr. Vance! Please! I didn't know." Julian sobbed, tears streaming down his cheeks. "I swear I didn't know you were the owner. I was just following standard security caution. Please don't destroy my career." Marcus looked down at Julian with a solemn, unyielding gaze. "That is your fundamental flaw, Julian," Marcus stated softly. You only treat people with basic respect when you think they possess power or wealth. When you believed I was powerless, you treated me like human garbage. Clara, Marcus continued, turning his gaze toward the trembling receptionist who was weeping quietly against the desk. You cancelled a valid, high-priority reservation out of sheer malice and vanity. Your actions proved that you lack the character required to serve anyone. "And Officer Reynolds," Marcus said, looking at the pale security chief. "You used physical force without cause, acting as an enforcer of prejudice rather than a protector of guests. You are an immense liability to this organization and a disgrace to your profession." Marcus turned to Arthur Sterling. "Arthur, effective immediately, terminate Julian, Clara, and Reynolds. Issue a permanent blacklist across all international hospitality partner networks so they can never work in luxury service again. File formal security misconduct charges against Reynolds." "It will be done right now, Mr. Vance," Arthur confirmed instantly, calling city security escort teams to remove the 3 disgraced employees from the premises immediately. Julian, Clara, and Reynolds were stripped of their badges, weeping hysterically as they were escorted out into the freezing storm. As the toxic staff were escorted away, Marcus walked over to young David, the bellhop who had tried to warn them earlier. David stood nervously, holding his hands behind his back. Marcus smiled warmly and extended his hand for a firm, genuine handshake. "David," Marcus said encouragingly, "you showed awareness, courage, and integrity when your superiors lack both. Starting tomorrow, you are the new front desk operations manager for this property, with a 300% salary increase and full corporate training benefits." David's eyes filled with tears of pure gratitude as he bowed respectfully. Marcus Vance personally escorted himself to the presidential penthouse suite, leaving behind a permanent lesson that true power is tested by how you treat those who can do nothing for you. What a powerful lesson on humility, dignity, and instant karma. Never judge anyone by their outer appearance, because you never know who you are truly speaking to. If you enjoyed this dramatic story, please smash that like button, leave your thoughts in the comments, share this video with friends, and subscribe for more breathtaking social dramas.